I said, hey, Dame, would you mind freestyling for us? And he looks me dead in the face and said, well, I'll rap if you rap first. I could not think of 2 words that rhymed. Now it's time to spill the tea with Mobby Tea. I always feel like I'm doing ASMR when I do this. I never get the can open. I'm gonna pop a nail off. These cans are not hard to get open, I swear. It's just me. For today's Spill the Tea segment, I wanted to spill some of my own tea. I'm normally spilling tea of celebrities or athletes, but today I wanted to share with you guys my top 3 most embarrassing TV moments. So I have been hosting for over 10 years now, on the internet, on live TV with a lot of different networks. And there are 3 instances that stand out most to me. Luckily, I feel like I haven't had any crazy moments, knock on wood, like that one Miss USA contestant who completely fumbled over Africa.
Some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Haven't had any of those moments, but I have had some pretty embarrassing. So I'm going to start off with actually my first most embarrassing moment that I feel like shaped the landscape of my sports hosting career. So this was one of my first interviews ever, where I was interviewing a professional athlete. Since then, obviously, I've probably interviewed over 100 different athletes, but one of my first ones was with Damian Lillard. And so this interview in particular was for East Bay. I believe at this point they went under, but if you guys don't remember, that's like a sports magazine. I used to buy so many shoes out of East Bay. That was who the interview was for. And at the time, Damian Lillard was just starting his rap career. So I had prepped for the interview. I was super nervous for it, but I was excited about it also. And before I went into the interview, the people at East Bay were like, ask Damian if he'll do a freestyle rap for us. Like, that would be so cool if he like freestyled. And I was like, okay, got it. So like added that to my notes. And so the interview is going great. We're like talking about shoes, all these different things. And then it gets to the point where I asked him, I said, hey, Dame, like, you know, with East Bay today, would you mind freestyling, an East Bay shoe rap for us? And he looks me dead in the face and said, well, I'll rap if you rap first. I have never had stage fright in my entire life. I've never frozen. I've never forgot my lines. Like, I've never been in a situation like that where like everything was just going to shit until this moment. I could not think of 2 words that rhymed. Like, couldn't think of a thing. I completely froze and I was like, me rap? And he's like, yeah, just like 4 bars. Mind you, I don't even think I knew what 4 bars meant. Is that like 4 lines or 4 words? I could not think of anything, anything. And I'm like a 22 or 23-year-old just getting started in the industry, like my first big interview with a professional athlete. Couldn't think of a thing. And so I stood there and I was like, oh, sorry, my face was probably bright red. And I was like, I don't know. I can't think of anything. I was like, my hair and a chair. I literally couldn't think of anything. And guess what, you guys? Damian Lillard didn't rap because I couldn't rap. And at the time, like, if I'm thinking about it now, like if that situation happened to me in the place I'm in now, I would probably laugh and I would probably like pull something out of my ass, or I would weasel my way around to like pin it back on him and like get him to rap. But at the time I was just young and green and I was so embarrassed, and he didn't do a rap. And then I felt like in my mind that I had failed the entire company because I couldn't think of words that rhymed. And I think I actually cried after that. I think I cried after that interview because I just felt so embarrassed. And what's funny too is when the camera stopped rolling, Dame came over to me and was like, apologize, because he could kind of tell that I got embarrassed, but he didn't save me in that moment. So I was like kind of pissed. I was like, well, you could have saved me when we were on camera, but he apologized after. And since then I've interviewed Dame a million times, and he's always been like super friendly and nice. So it was fine. It is what it is. But at 22, 23 years old, I was very, very embarrassed by that moment. My next embarrassing moment was when I was doing my first live television hit for NBA TV. I had done live television before, but this was actually doing a live hit for NBA TV during the NBA Finals, which was Warriors Cavs. If you guys remember that final series, I believe it was the 2017 series. Yeah, it was 2017 because in 2018 I covered the entire NBA Finals. But 2017, I was doing my first live hit. The game was actually in Cleveland, but they stationed me in Golden State because they were doing this huge watch party at Golden State because I believe it was game 4 or game 5. And if the Warriors won, then they would have won the entire, it might have been like game 6. I'd have to look back and see anyway, it was a very big game because if the Warriors won this game, then they won the entire series, won the finals. So I was stationed there, and it was crazy. It was Old Oracle. It was completely like packed with fans cheering. It was basically like the team was playing right in front of you on the court. And what was going to happen for this live hit is there was the NBA TV TNT crew. So you know how it's normally like Shaq, Ernie Johnson, Kenny, and Charles. Well, this was all of them except Ernie wasn't there and Charles wasn't there. So it was like Greenlee and somebody else. So it was Kenny, Shaq, Greenlee, and then I forget who the last person was. They were going to be asking me questions, and I was like the in Oracle reporter for them, kind of like reporting the vibe, this and that from the arena. So we are doing a sound check. And what also happens on live television is you get this little earpiece. So there will be a camera in front of you, and the other studio will be on camera. But if you are the reporter, you don't actually see them. You're just like staring straight into a camera, but you can hear them. And so I got this little earpiece and we're doing sound check, and I'm telling my production crew, I'm like, I can't hear. Like, we're doing these checks, I can't hear. It's like coming through kind of muffled. It's coming in and out. And I don't know if it was a frequency thing because we were in Oracle and there were so many people or what it was, but I couldn't hear what was going on. And so they're like, oh crap. And then it's getting closer and closer to the time that I needed to do the live hit. And so then they added another one. So now I have 2 earpieces, one in both ear. And I'm like, you guys, I still can't hear. The second earpiece they put in, like I could hear it a little bit more clearly, but it was just like a lower volume. So then they took tape and like taped the earpieces to my ear to try to like maybe block out the extra noise that I was hearing from all the fans. But what I was trying to tell them is it's not only the volume of that I can't hear, it's that it's coming through like maybe every other word, or it's just getting choppy at certain places. And I knew that when I went live on television, I can't say like, hey guys, can't hear you. I can't answer your question. Long story short, 2 in-ears in, tape over both of them. We put my hair so it was like covering them, and I go for the live hit. When I tell you guys, I was hearing every other word of the questions that they were asking me. And I remember the first question, what I think they asked me. Now, I don't know. I think the verdict will always be out on whether this is the question they actually asked me. I think they asked me if Warriors fans wanted the Warriors to win in Cleveland, or if they didn't want them to win so that they could come back and win at Oracle. And I remember, and by the way, this is all happening within like 5 milliseconds of my brain, but I remember thinking, well, that's a stupid question to ask. Like, why would they want the Warriors to lose? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I was like, but maybe that was the question that they asked. So I had to think of all of this super quickly. I answered it and I was like, well, they're really excited to be here right now watching their team. I'm sure that they would be happy for them to win tonight. And I remember kind of stumbling over my lines. And then there was a follow-up question. Guys, I couldn't tell you I could not tell you what they said in the follow-up at all. And I don't know what kind of answer I pulled out of my ass to try to like make it seem like I was saying something meaningful, but it was such a disaster. I don't know who was watching. I'm sure they were probably like, oh, this girl has never done live television before. She doesn't know what she's doing. But long story short, I felt sabotaged. Not purposely, but I really couldn't hear a damn thing. So I just kind of BS'd an answer and never worked with NBA TV again. They didn't hire me again. So whether they thought it was my fault or theirs, that was that. But yeah, super embarrassing to go on live TV and stumble across what you're saying because you don't know what you should be talking about. And last but not least, probably I've alluded to this interview in other videos, but probably the worst interview that I've ever done in my entire life, unfortunately, because this interview was with a legend, a legendary player, and that legendary player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I was super excited to interview Kareem. We were also told for this interview that we would get an hour of time with him. And I was really excited about that because normally when you do interviews with professional athletes and especially legends like that, you're maybe getting like 10 to 20 minutes. And for 2K TV, a lot of the interviews that we did, even if we did get an hour with somebody, was cut down to like a super short interview. Like those, you guys just never saw those interviews in their entirety, unfortunately. But they were always just like, chopped up and shortened a lot. But I was super excited for this interview, walked into the interview. He was sitting there and I would just say, like, I don't really know how. I guess I walked into that interview and walked out of that interview not really understanding what just happened because he wasn't very friendly to me. And I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Always, always, always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know what was going on in his life that day, if he wasn't in a good mood, if he didn't feel like sitting down with me. Long story short, the interview that was supposed to be an entire hour of my time that he had said that he was okay doing ended up being 10 minutes because it was like pulling teeth trying to get any kind of answer out of him or any kind of smile about him. And I also kind of pride myself when I do interviews to be just like really like friendly and upbeat. I always want whoever I'm talking to. Well, firstly, whoever I'm talking to, I want them to want to be there. Like if you don't want to talk to me and don't want to be interviewed by me, I don't want to be holding you hostage. Like I never want to be that media person who's making somebody answer questions. That's never, ever, 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 ever my intent. And so I was getting a little bit confused when it seemed like everything, like he just didn't want to be there. He wasn't cracking a smile, wasn't really making eye contact, didn't really shake my hand, kind of shook it in like a interesting way. So I would love to hope that all of that was because he just wasn't having a good day. But definitely this was, maybe 6 years ago at this point. But it was definitely a little bit of a dream crusher in a sense, because when you are excited to interview a legend, especially somebody like Kareem, and then you're just disappointed from that and you didn't think it went the way that you want, and you also didn't think that he had a good time because he wouldn't even crack a smile at you. It was rough. And so maybe there will be a chance in the future where I can redeem myself or he can redeem himself, and maybe it would go a little bit better. But if not, this is why sometimes you are not supposed to meet your idols, because you could be disappointed. I don't really like, I feel like those are my most embarrassing moments, and I feel lucky that it's not anything crazier than those. Actually, I have called someone the wrong name once. Yeah, no, I did that recently actually. When I was doing that, actually just triggered my mind. That was pretty embarrassing, but it was just like such a small moment, and the guy was cool. So it was Doug McDermott, he plays for the Spurs. Mm-hmm. And I think I called him Dan, but it was a mental slip of mine. Like, I just called him another name, and then he was like Doug, and I was like, oh shit, my bad. But I don't know. In those senses also, like, I feel like you're only embarrassed as like your expectations are for yourself. Like, if you can also laugh at yourself, sometimes, like, we're all humans, we make mistakes, you know? There was this one time also, I was interviewing a player, and they had a game the night before that went into like double overtime. And I was like, congrats on the win last night. I know it was a crazy game, and they lost. Like, I just mixed up the scores when I was looking, and he was like, and he started laughing. I was like, oh, why are you laughing? Like, you know, it was a big win for you guys. And he's like, oh, we lost. And I was like, oh, my bad. But it's also, I don't know, like, to me, those are moments that you just laugh about it. Most people are understanding. I'm, for the most part, very prepared for my interview. So it's not like I'm going in there and like completely butchering something because I wasn't prepared. It's mostly like, you know, I'm a dork sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like in general, it's one of those things like, and I just like, luckily, I'm probably jinxing myself across the board. I don't have that many, I feel like, embarrassing moments, because I feel like if you're able to laugh at yourself, then you don't get embarrassed as easily. If I had this facade that I was like this perfect person and I never messed up, or I never said the wrong thing, or I never, you know, whatever, then it, you know, if that gets broken, then it's hard. But yeah, I feel like those were some from the beginning that were kind of embarrassing. You know, somebody else who was really intimidating in the beginning when I was interviewing him as well was Spike Lee. The first like 5 minutes of that, he would not crack a smile, wouldn't anything. And he like, again, like wasn't really making eye contact. And there was at one point in the interview, it flipped a switch and I was able to like make him giggle. And like, thank God for that, because it would have also been a brutal interview. And like, normally, I feel like even if people are tough interviews, I am able to get to that point where it does switch, or where they realize like, okay, she's not threatening. Like, I'm pretty chill when I interview, and I'm also a little bit awkward. So it should make you feel comfortable because you're with somebody who's awkward. So like, you're actually the star here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to laugh. I'm able to joke about certain things, like, you know, and I normally try to use that. And Spike Lee was one though that I was like, oh, this is gonna be rough. And then he giggled once, and I was like, yes. There we go. I got a smile out of him.